each question and will be prompted when there's 15 seconds remaining, 5 seconds left, and their time is up. And we will conclude promptly at 8 o'clock. So we're now ready to get started. Before you got here, our two candidates, Andrew Zarrow and Rose Mahoney, flipped a coin to see who would start. Rose is going to be starting, and then we'll take turns with each subsequent question. For this particular part of our forum, we're going to give each candidate 3 minutes to introduce themselves. And they were asked in advance to include in their introduction their top 3 policy areas. So you're on, Rose. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me here. And thank you to the Woodfords Corner Neighborhood Association and the Back Cove Neighborhood Association. I appreciate being here. I'm over here in East Deering. So also in the Back Cove, I guess. You know, folks often ask, why are you running? So why am I running? I'm running because this is the city that I love. This is my home. I was born in Portland. I'm actually a 3rd generation Portlander. And I grew up not too far. I'm a longtime friend of Woodfords Corner. I grew up on Beacon Street. And there are a lot of reasons. I ran for this race in 2014 and was not successful. And when the opportunity came up again, I took the opportunity. And I really do want to I want to serve the city of Portland as sort of a service of gratitude, sort of an act of appreciation for this city. There's nothing like coming home to Portland. It's also important to me that we have adequate representation of women on the council, and with 2 women rotating off and no certainty about who's going to replace them, you know, it's possible to have a really super majority of not women on the council. So I do, you know, I just think it's important to have that voice. I'm a union member. And I think I am the only union member running in this campaign, either city council or school board. And I am a 10-year employee of the Maine Education Association. So I do have a lot of experience in advocacy, in negotiation with school boards. I'm accustomed to working within government or, you know, municipal government organizations. And I am supported by Ben Chipman and Ben Collings, Diane Russell, as well as a number of notable businessmen in the area, including Steve DeMillo, Fred Forsley, and Sam Minervino will be hosting a little get together for me through my cousin who works for him also. And, you know, the opportunity to serve the city of Portland, it's the right time for me. My kids are grown.
15 seconds.
Thank you. I refer to my children who, as my millennial council. So they are the people who keep me current and keep
5 seconds.
Keep me up to speed on what's going on. I'd appreciate your vote. Thanks.
Thank you. Can you tell us really quickly what are the 3 policy issues of most importance?
Yes, affordable housing, number 1, resolving this issue of homelessness, and support for working families.
Thank you. Andrew, please introduce yourself and tell us what your 3 top policy areas are also.
Hi, everybody. It's really nice to see everyone. And it's nice to see so many people involved in tonight's meeting. Thanks to the Friends of Woodfords Corner and the Back Cove Neighborhood Association for hosting this together. It really means a lot to have this opportunity. My name is Andrew Zarrow, and I live in Back Cove with my partner, TJ, and our 2 dogs. For those of you who know me, you probably know me from Woodfords Corner, the owner of a small shop called Little Woodfords. We are no longer in Woodfords Corner, unfortunately. We are now in downtown Portland, but we'll get to that later in the night. My top 3 priorities why I'm running for city council are diversity and inclusion. I think representation matters. There has not been a queer person on the city council in almost my entire lifetime. And for a city as progressive as Portland, I just think that's incredibly problematic for a cornerstone of that identity in the city. Small business advocacy and local economic development. Portland is known to be, or the city council rather, is known to be pro-development for quite some time, but pro-development is not pro-small business. Small businesses, worker-owner businesses are the lifeblood of the city. And the vibrant downtown community that we have, the vibrant business community we have all throughout the city, including Woodfords Corner as a commercial corridor. So I really need us to have a voice, and I think we all do, for small business, locally owned businesses on our council, because we are facing something unlike we faced before with COVID. The thing about COVID, though, it unearthed what was already there with increasing rents, not just residential, but commercial, access to capital, advocacy for treating our employees and our workers well with a minimum wage of at least $15. I personally offer healthcare to my employees, paid sick leave, which is important now more than ever with this global pandemic, and the ability to show up to work and just be who you are in that moment. And the third major reason why I'm running is climate change. That is the single biggest issue facing any of us, my generation, any generation for that matter. And we need to do more. And the good news is we have done some, but there's so much more left to do. I hope we get into the details tonight with policy ideas and initiatives that I have, but there is no idea too small when it comes to combating climate change, especially in a city like Portland that is so subject to those impacts that we're already seeing right now. I'm so grateful to be able to run for office right now, although it's not an ideal time, to be completely honest with any of you, but I don't think we should have elected officials who think it's their turn to run or who are next in line. I think we need people who are willing to roll up their sleeves and do the work and meet people where they're at. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Under the bell. Okay, we are moving on to the next part of the forum, where candidates will be given the opportunity to answer 4 different questions. Over the weekend, we shared 5 questions with the candidates and explained that they would be asked to answer at least 3 of them. Back Cove Neighborhood Association and their president, David Very, will be asking the 4th question, which candidates have not previewed. Candidates will each have 2 minutes for their preliminary answer for each question and 1 minute to rebut during a second round. So on this one, we're going to start with Andrew. Question number 1, and you will have 2 minutes. The question is, even before the pandemic struck, Woodfords Corner struggled to keep its storefronts occupied and businesses growing. Challenges to businesses are even greater now. We're interested in your ideas for helping the corner thrive as an economic hub of the city. The question is, what 3 concrete steps would you suggest the community and the city take to make Woodfords Corner a thriving economic hub? So again, 2 minutes and you're on, Andrew. You're on. Uh-oh.
All right, I'm there. The PowerPoint like totally blacked my screen out.
Okay, I'm starting you again. Go ahead.
Thank you. This one hurts. This one's personal. And there's but the thing is, there's a lot we can do about it, right? And 1000% COVID unearthed what was already there. Woodfords Corner is a robust commercial corridor that has been for quite some time. It's gone through many iterations, but those vacant storefronts are an indication of something not working. We need to take a multi-pronged approach of how we're going to look at a corridor like Woodfords Corner as we see it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15. We've already replicated, or we've already done this in our city. And Woodfords Corner has taken a great first step by becoming a Main Street network community with the main downtown center. I think the next iteration would be replicating what Portland downtown is, a geographic business improvement district that requires investments from commercial property owners, residential property owners, businesses, renters, owners, and organizations across the geographic area where we have everyone show up and have a seat at the table. It almost mandates that folks are involved, and if they're not, then we can have those conversations moving forward. There are some low-hanging fruit ideas for vacant storefronts, right? You see a vacant storefront, you have an interactive opportunity for folks to say, oh, wow, there is this vacant storefront, and people have already written what we would like to envision here. When you think of a downtown or a district, you want to think of 10 things that you can do there. So you get a cup of coffee, you get your dry cleaning done, you go to the butcher, you go to the bookstore, you go to the movie theater. We need to create, through design, storefront, signage,
15
transportation, a destination where people are going to go to. And the good news is Woodfords Corner has already done that. It's where 4 dense neighborhoods, including Back Cove, converge on one another. And I just love it so much and can't wait to see it grow more.
Time's up. Thank you very much. Rose, you're on. Same question. She's muted.
Me and the mute button. We have a bad relationship.
Okay, you're on. Go ahead. 2 minutes.
It is a difficult area, Woodfords Corner, and for the reason that you stated in your question, that it's a traffic tie-up if nothing else. But I think 3 policy things that I would do is you want to make it a more walkable area, and you want to make that a more walkable area in the seasons when it makes sense. So similar to what has happened in the Old Port over the summer, I would advocate for that small section of Deering Avenue from Dunkin' Donuts down to Big Sky Bread Company to have that be seasonally closed off to allow for greater movement in the area. That mitigates the need, to dodge the speeding cars through the area, which is kind of one of the big concerns. Secondly, I would advocate, as we do in Portland, for a really vibrant public transit system. As I said earlier, I live in East Deering. I cannot take public transportation from my house to your neighborhood without going in town. I could honestly walk there faster. So to improve our public transportation system, to alleviate the need for personal cars, for personal vehicles, and then to participate in a larger collaborative project for easing and mitigating the traffic problems in that area by, again, with the public transportation, but then having satellite parking in the Westbrook area, coming in from, a little further out like near the Barron Center. Thanks. And so to ease it up a little bit, to make it a more walkable and more accessible area.
5.
Thanks. I'm good.
Okay, great. Thank you. And actually, this is perfectly segueing into our next question. So our second question has 2 parts. And here you go. This one will be starting with Rose. Forest Avenue has always been designed with motorists in mind. While the Woodfords Corner intersection project has helped improve pedestrian safety while creating additional pedestrian spaces, it still prioritizes cars over pedestrians and cyclists. Part 1, how do you propose shifting that paradigm so that the corner is a place where people want to walk, bike, and actually spend time? And 2, how do you propose to leverage additional funding for active transportation improvements in the corner? So Rose, you go first on this one. And the clock is running.
Well, so naturally, if we're discouraging one kind of transportation, particularly, car travel, then we have to be promoting another kind, as I talked about in the last question. So, to advocate more fervently for a more robust public transportation system is certainly one way to go. In terms of, I do have your questions here. In terms of leveraging additional funding for active transportation improvements, I think I talked about that too, to sort of expand it out. That the problem is not in Woodfords Corner. The problem is at the beginning of Forest, 302 as you come in from Westbrook, and the problem is Brighton Avenue as you come in from the other Westbrook. And so it's sort of sharing the responsibility and recognizing that this is not a problem that's unique to Woodfords Corner, although it is certainly top of mind for Woodfords Corner, but it's a problem in many areas of the city. And to the extent that it may be possible to interact with Google Maps, Apple Maps, any maps, and somehow discourage the rerouting of traffic through the neighborhoods for people who are in a rush to get from point A to point B. So certainly, reasonable expansion of the pedestrian and bike routes that are already in place. And then, we are a place where there are seasons where biking and walking are a bit more treacherous and difficult. So, just a comprehensive plan and program to keep our sidewalks clear and keep those intersections
15.
passable. And to speak to the need of pedestrian and cyclist safety.
5 seconds.
I'm good. I'm 5
Okay.
seconds early.
Great. Andrew, your turn.
Well, there's no bad weather, there's just bad clothing. I think that, okay, so I feel like no one knows that stoplight quite like I do, because I stared at it for 3 years and listened to people lay on their horns. Woodfords Corner is the second most heavily trafficked corridor in the state of Maine. The first most heavily trafficked corridor in the state of Maine is Morrill's Corner, both of which are District 4 hubs. So there's a lot of opportunity there for what we have to do. What happened in 2017 and 2018 with the redesign of the corner was a significant improvement. I don't think any of us can argue that. Yes, Forest Ave is a major highway that is intended to get people in and out of Portland without stopping. But those of us like myself who did the work to give people the opportunity to stop, stay a while, and hang out, quickly realized, hey, how many other shops wanted to do the same in this corner, which was less expensive than downtown Portland. I agree with thinking outside the box with tactical urbanism. Maybe we remove a couple of parking spots and we put parklets up instead. We allow design to influence what the corner looks like going forward. I think I've come to terms with the fact that Woodfords Corner is always going to be a busy intersection, but there are ways that we can take design, zoning, and planning and merge them together to really envision what the future of Woodfords Corner is going to look like. Regarding transportation, Rose and I don't disagree on this. We need more bike ped options. We need bike lanes that don't, I bike a lot. I have a hard time biking in Forest Ave. It's one of the more dangerous places to bike in the city. And that's a problem because back to climate change, we need to reduce our overuse of personal vehicles. So yes, increasing the metro.
5 seconds.
And then, oh my goodness, 5 seconds. Overall, yeah, just taking care of the corner and snow removal. That one I'm just gonna say for all the Woodfords Corner people here.
Okay, thank you. I made my first moderator major blunder, which is I forgot to give you an opportunity to rebut on question 1. So you're going to get 2 minutes to continue talking on this question. And I want to remind you that neither of you answered the part about leveraging additional funding for active transportation improvements in the corner. So I'm going to give you each 2 minutes. Andrew, you can start and you may begin.
In terms of leveraging active transportation funding, we already know that Maine Department of Transportation is heavily invested in this corner, right? We saw that over a 2-year project. So, and it's also it's a state highway. I think continuing to have those ongoing conversations with and working with our state legislators to show up, the community matters here, and what they want to see should be a part of the equation. In my personal experience, MainDOT has been exceptional to work with. They always answered our emails and phone calls. So I see no reason not to believe a reallocation of funding towards the continued improvement of Woodfords Corner is not out of the question. And I think reallocating city funding that maybe there's a little waste that can go towards participatory budgeting within the community, where people get to say, hey, these are the issues that are important to me, and this is how we want to see our tax dollars spent. I would be shocked if the people of Greater Woodfords Corner didn't show up and work towards and demand a reallocation of resources towards investing in that corridor.
Right? You have more time?
Oh. Well, I'd love to see it. I mean, overall, yeah, having been there and done the work every single day, having other businesses join me and be able to recruit them there, make those connections with residents who are actively involved in planting raised beds, making sure that if the city can't cover something, they're going to cover it for them. I mean, this is a model case study of what community revitalization looks like and what can be accomplished. This can be accomplished in Woodfords Corner, this can become a national model for what revitalization, equitable revitalization looks like, where everyone has a seat at the table and everyone's voice matters when it comes to what their community looks like.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Rose, your turn. Same question.
So I have 2 more minutes on this.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. So back in the way long ago before my time, that thoroughfare actually was designed for trolley routes. So in terms of leveraging additional funding, the metro is not our only option for public transit. There are, I had a questionnaire today, Andrew probably did too, from the rail groups. And look, while theirs is like commute between Portland and Auburn, which my office is in Auburn, I would welcome that. But what are the possibilities for a zip bus or a Zoom bus, or for a trolley or for light rail going into Portland? Why not think big picture and make Portland more of a rail type city? I know that would take a long time and a lot of money, but let's think big picture and figure out how we can get across and in. I will say again that public transportation doesn't go from where I live to where you live. And that seems kind of silly to me. For a long time, I worked at the University of Southern Maine, and I would have loved to have taken public transportation so I didn't have to pay to park there, pay to go to work. But there was not the opportunity. So on the days when I could walk, had the time to walk from my house over near Washington Avenue, around the Boulevard and over to USM, I took that opportunity.
15.
Okay. So again, we have to think really big picture. We have to think well beyond Woodfords Corner to resolve the issues that are existing there.
Thank you. Okay, we have a third question, and this question is: the diverse mix of businesses and housing in Woodfords Corner are essential to its character. As property values increase throughout Portland, how can the city work with Friends of Woodfords Corner to improve economic vitality without pricing out current residents and businesses? So I can't remember whose turn is it to start. We had Rose, Andrew, Rose. So this is Andrew, you get to start again. And again, we're going to do 2 minutes for each of you, and then we'll do a minute for each of you on the second cycle. So Andrew, your turn.
Yeah, I mean, full transparency, this one hurts. This one's personal. I live right around the corner from Woodfords Corner. I invested my everything into opening my business there. I worked with so many stakeholders and encouraged people to get involved and increase the value, not just the economic value, like the social value, the community value, and was priced out of my own work by property owners who don't live in the area, don't care about the future of Woodfords Corner. And that's not okay. That's happening to businesses across the city. And it's not just a COVID thing. However, we can see every single day small businesses are shuttering and closing their doors because we have people who are not working with them. Last week, I was in Bloomberg News on this exact issue, talking about what happened and the importance for small businesses to advocate and reach out to their local elected officials to make sure this doesn't happen. So I think the city of Portland has an obligation, especially right now in the state of emergency in a pandemic, to protect the tenants, both commercial and residential tenants, from eviction or from bizarre lease renewals or from anything that is adding to the undue burden of just existing right now. This is a problem, right? So Woodfords Corner, was punching up when it came to this revitalization and this economic growth and the energy and honestly the love that was poured into this work. And now it has even more stacked against it because everyone, when they talk about small businesses and the local economy of Portland, they're thinking about the old port. They're thinking about WEX. They're thinking about everyone else but these hubs where the communities, the diverse communities are intersecting and overlapping to let people stay afloat. So I think we need a city council who's advocating to protect those tenants, commercial and residential. Thanks.
Thank you. Rose, same question.
Not on mute. Good. I echo a lot of what Andrew said, and I mean the real, the fly in the ointment here is, when we talk about without pricing out current residents and current businesses, because when does that happen? That happens when somebody sells their property. And the current trend in Portland and throughout the state of Maine, and my work takes me a long way along the coast. And when you have a piece of property listed for whatever $225,000, and somebody from a larger city that has a larger average income comes in and pays $100,000 over asking, without problem. That right there is pricing local people, Mainers, out of the running, and then it also has sort of that ripple effect that then increases the property values. I mean, we've seen it happen many times in Portland that the real estate market just goes up and down. So while I don't claim to know exactly what the process would be to inhibit or discourage that kind of sale, that would be the sort of thing that I would be looking to do, to say, to have some sort of opportunity program where a local business owner or a person who wants to open a new business, buys a piece of real estate, and then there's some program on the back end that says, you can't gouge when you sell it.
15 seconds.
It's that is the real, it's the real challenge throughout the city, and I think now is the time to deal with it.
Thank you. Andrew, you have 1 minute to either rebut anything that Rose said or just to add your second thoughts. I think you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There was a pop-up, sorry.
Clock is starting now. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, I just want to talk about the issues that are impacting us, right? I think the biggest issue is that people are genuinely feeling that they're just not being heard by the people representing them. So focusing on this particular issue and your language of using a diverse mix of residents and businesses in the corner and how they're going to be represented. I mean, the diversity of business alone in the corner is arguably the greatest in the entire city of Portland. You can really have it all there. But these are people who have barriers to entry right now, even more than they did before. So there's a lot of language barriers. I think the city has done some work trying to reach out to folks who, English might not be their first language, or a multi-generational business, families handing it down. I think the city and the economic development department need to plug into that, realize that that's an asset, and then continue to help them grow their business during these tough times and beyond.
Thank you. Rose, you're up.
And I get that, and perhaps at the risk of sounding unpopular, but it's a tough time in this city when we're talking about basic needs for many individuals of housing and food, and really basic needs of human existence, and weigh that against asking the city to, at this point in time, invest in local businesses. I'll tell you that throughout the pandemic, I had a hard time with that, and not necessarily with any local business, but with the PPP and large corporations taking that money simply because they could. So, I think there's an opportunity, if there's some sort of, really needs testing.
15.
And then also, I do hope that anybody who needs it is taking advantage of the opportunity, the financial options that are being offered by the state right now.
Thank you. You guys are doing so well, keeping within the time parameters. Are you trying to tell me something, Andrew?
If there's opportunity at the end, I just really want to come back to that because there were a few things that I think are really important to address there.
Great. We will do that. I think we will have time. So our next question will be asked by David Berry, who's the president of the Back Cove Neighborhood Association. And David did not share the questions with the candidates in advance. So this is more of a surprise question than what they've had so far. Go ahead, David.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right. Am I going by the same time guidelines that you have, Nancy?
That is the hope. We are currently 2 minutes ahead, so you can have 2 extra minutes if you want.
Hi, Andrew. Hi, Rose. Thank you very much for participating tonight. So the Back Cove Neighborhood Association and Back Cove in general, as you all know, if anybody knows about the Back Cove, it's made up of single-family homes, mostly middle class, some upper middle class housing, and small businesses. That's what Back Cove is. And so, I look at your websites, and there's a lot of talk about obviously helping a lot of folks in the city, and that's all important. But some of the things that are important to people here, and I see some of these people on the screen, are people who we just today got our tax bills in the mail today. And so we here in the burbs are paying the taxes for all the programs that people want to do. And it's interesting that this year there's all these questions that are being put on by the Southern Maine Democratic Socialists of America. And I noticed that the leader of that organization, I think Kate Snipes, was quoted in the newspaper saying, instead of putting property owners first. A lot of folks, property owners, don't feel like we're being put first a lot of the time. So I guess I would like to talk to you folks and have you talk about, what do you say to people like, I see, Jackie Cohen's on the screen here, people who are retired, who they're trying to keep their houses and they have high tax bills in Portland. What can you say to the homeowners, the people paying the taxes here in Portland, as to what you could do to help them and make life a little easier for them? And we start with, I think, Rose.
That's a great question, David. Thank you. I am a homeowner myself. The advice that I guess it's too late to give is be very poor when you buy your home. Because my property taxes are paid right along with my mortgage, and they go straight, and the mortgage company pays my taxes for me every year, and they adjust my mortgage appropriately. So, my tax bill is going to the mortgage company. But I do see, I see the thing that frustrates me in Portland is, the added fees, the additional fees, the stormwater drainage fees, paying $1.50 for a trash bag. Those are things that really sort of eat at me a little bit, particularly during the pandemic. I saw that you didn't have to pay for trash bags, and then all of a sudden, but I did. You know, for folks who are, you know, I mean, there are state programs that people can take advantage of. I'm forgetting the term right now. It's a really easy one. But there, you know, I think there are resources through the Housing Trust Fund in Portland. You know, I will say again, living in poverty when I bought my house, you know, I received a $30,000 no interest loan from the city of Portland to buy my house. So I would think on the other end of the spectrum, when retirement and living on a fixed income, that there are resources available for folks if that is what is needed. You know, I suppose this is also a good opportunity to, you know, to say, you know, we could perhaps incentivize through a tax incentive for a person to sell their existing home to a new family, you know, at a reasonable profit or whatever they can afford. To not have it go to somebody from out of state for, you know, for $100,000 over asking.
I think you're out of time. I was
Thank you.
muted.
Andrew.
Thanks, David. I think, okay, so there's a couple parts to this, and I know I only have 2 minutes. Ethically, what I believe in morally, I believe in these questions. I think the referenda process is being overused and abused, and now we have set ourselves up for a potential for the people's vote to be really hard to get when we need it most. An example of when we needed it most was marriage equality. I agree with these, and I live these values. I'm the only candidate, school board and council, who has posted on my website why I am voting the way I'm voting personally, not a counselor yet, and my reasoning, because these are hard, and you should not ask residents to have advanced degrees to be able to read these ballot questions when everything else is going on in their life. That being said, one thing that I love about District 4 is the multi-generational neighborhoods that we have here. My neighbors here have lived in their homes for 30, 40, 50 years, and a lot of them are on fixed incomes because they're retired. And that's, you know, it's hard for us to keep up as small business owners and residents with property taxes. But if you have a fixed income and you're elderly, there are other things going on for you. You know, I've done a lot of work with aging in place in the city, but we need to show up for people who can't show up for them, who need someone to show up for them. So an idea that I had is the Homestead Tax Exemption. We all have access to that through the state. Why don't we have a municipal Homestead Tax Exemption for people who have lived in their house, maybe set it for 10 years at a time, right? So that's a way of rewarding the folks who have been here, invested in the community, and can stay here. They can age in place. They can have access to their community. And that's a policy initiative that has tangible, real results that keeps people in this neighborhood and rewards them for being here. I mean, there's so much more that we can do, but overall, I think we have to be looking out for our neighbors. I'll end there instead of continuing. Thank you.
I think I still got maybe 4 minutes. I'd like to sort of ask sort of different questions that you brought up. And Andrew, I think you're going to go first on this one, if I could, and just have maybe a minute, Nancy, if that's okay for an answer. You brought up all the referendums that and Andrew, to your credit, you did post on your site the reasons why. And I know you said, I think you said you'd vote yes on all of them. I think I'm correct on that. Let me ask you this. Which one you think is the toughest one for you to vote yes? Which one you think is sort of could be an issue, and why?
Yeah, I'm voting yes on all of them after doing research, with the exception of tenant protections. I'm undecided and I'm still doing a lot of work. To be completely honest, I don't think it's going to have the intended result that it should have. And I think there's actually a lot more that can be done at the policy level to make it have teeth and make it actually be something that's implementing people in the results in the short term and the long term. That one's going to be the hardest, but there are alternatives that we can do. You know, we talk about affordable housing, which has so many levels to it, and I wish I had like 5 minutes, but I don't. I think
I appreciate that, Andrew. Thank you.
I think do I have a couple seconds?
Yes.
I think another like tangible property tax policy that the city can implement to not incentivize rent increases would be if we gave landlords the opportunity to, if they choose not to increase
5
their
seconds.
rent. Oh my goodness!
Finish the sentence. Go ahead, finish the sentence.
If we give, sorry, if we give landlords the opportunity not to increase the rent, then they do not have an increase in their property taxes, and then tenants benefit, and then it goes to the local economy. If they do increase property taxes, great, that's on them, they didn't have to. Then we get increased revenue at the city level. So it's a win-win situation, and it's a way to ensure that our local economy and our folks who need access to affordable housing have that opportunity. And that's just one of many things that we can do on top of something like this.
Okay.
Rose, I think you've got a couple minutes. Andrew had some extra time. Which of the referendum questions or the ballot initiatives in Portland either you disagree with, or the one that you had the toughest to say yes?
Well,
And I'm going to give you 1 minute and 30 seconds, so we're equal with Andrew.
All right, that's fine.
Thank you. So I have to turn your question because it's more difficult for me to vote no on some of them. And so Andrew and I are very different on these matters. I will vote yes on the tenant protections and no on the rest of them. And it breaks my heart to vote no on a $15 minimum wage. But where that falls apart for me is the requirement to pay an emergency wage of $22.50 an hour. That I support a business doing that, and I wish that businesses would just do it on their own. Apart from that, I would advocate for larger union membership, because when employees work together to advocate for their own best interests, then they can improve their own conditions. And if we can improve union density, I think we would see these things happen naturally. The other one that it's very difficult for me to vote no on is the Green New Deal. And again, for the same reasons, there are so many wonderful things in that bill, apprenticeship, safe work sites, developers having to, provide some affordable units in their place, and increasing the cost of buying their way out of that. But the zoning changes that occur as a result of the Green New Deal, and the fact that the zoning changes cannot be changed for 5 years by the council, it is folly to think that all of what is written in there is, as Andrew said, if you don't have an advanced degree, you don't understand, a degree in urban planning. It's hard to understand that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rose. Thank you, Nancy.
Great. So we have now reached the part of the program where we wanted to have questions from the audience. And Liz, do we have some new questions or that have come through the chat?
You bet, Nancy.
Well, we do. Okay.
We have one new question that is a second to a question we already have, which is very exciting. So both Kirk and Andy are asking, what do you see? Oh, sorry. How will you use your seat on the council to support the creation of new small businesses and advocate on behalf of existing ones? So how would you use your seat on the council to support the creation of new small businesses and advocate on behalf of existing ones?
Okay, so I believe we are starting with Rose on this one. And this is again, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 1 minute. So Rose, you're on.
Okay. So one of as a union negotiator, I often look at municipal budgets, look at school budgets, look at and ask hard questions about what's going on with this line and what's going on with this fund balance. And conversation that I had today with a firefighter. He said that the biggest issue in their budget is that they really exceed their overtime every year, and their overtime line in their budget. And part of the reason that that happens is their feeling is that the city does not listen to them in the budgeting process. There is a certain amount of attrition that happens with public employees every year. The same thing happens in schools. But I know what happens in schools is, When people retire, so let's say the average income is $70,000 and people get hired in at $40,000. So there's a $30,000 savings when a teacher retires and a new one is hired. The rest of the costs can stay relatively the same. But what school districts do is they take that money and they want to put it over in a savings account, where actually they should be keeping those dollars right in the same line item so they can anticipate the negotiated increases that are coming and not create a budget deficit for themselves. And the firefighters are offering the same advice to the city, the same information, and the city is not listening. So every year they go into a situation where they're really increasing that overtime line in the budget when they propose the solution up front. So I
15
think that we have to
seconds.
speak to our city employees, our union represented employees, and have those hard conversations and get their feedback and figure out where the efficiencies can take place,
5 seconds.
and then assign those funds to assisting small businesses.
Thank you. Andrew, 2 minutes.
I have an idea. So if we want folks to support and advocate for small locally owned businesses in Portland on the city council, we need to elect someone who does that every single day. I'm a worker owner, so I'm not someone who sits at home and just like texts my employees to see how things are going. I take out the trash. I'm there every single morning at 6 a.m. Something inevitably breaks every single day and I'm there. I take care of my employees, and every single small business in the city knows what that feels like. And it hurts right now to see so many people turn their backs on us, to see the Chamber of Commerce to make up all sorts of nonsense about how a $15 an hour minimum wage will decimate the city. Most of us are doing it already. You just have to, at some point, we as a city have to live our values, and our city council's job is to listen to us. I mean, none of this stuff happens in a silo, right? Everything is intersectional. There are a lot of levels to it. But at the end of the day, we need to listen to the people who are asking for help, and that can go for any identity. You know, I'm having a hard time here listening to, you know, it feels a little personal that we're talking about small businesses. One moment they, you know, need to access resources and they have PPP money and whatever, and the next minute, you know, our hearts are breaking over what's happening to small businesses in the city. Like we can't have our cake and eat it too. We pride ourselves on being a vibrant local economy from people who, for you know, predominantly small locally owned shops that are hiring people, taking care of people, making sure they're treated well. And yeah, sure, there are some not so great small businesses out there, but that can be said of any profession. If we want to maintain the identity of what we think when we visit Portland, when we talk about when we're written up in something, we need to be taking care of people at every level of government and of the people who live and work here every single day.
Thank you. We're actually going to go to another new question. These were supposed to be 1 minute long answers. And Liz Hall, if you can see her on the screen, is another board member of Friends of Woodfords Corner. Thank you, Liz, for all your help. Do you have the next question?
Sure, I do. Both Martha and Clara are wondering about both of your tactics to advance racial justice in the city. So in particular, how will you use your seat to advocate for racial justice in Portland, including in the schools, and promoting anti-racist policies that can benefit all the districts, all the people of District 4, and I'll say of the city too, if you don't mind me adding that, Martha. So.
Okay, so this is Andrew starting on this one, and we're going to give you each 1 minute. Anytime you're ready, Andrew.
Okay, I think we start by acknowledging that systemic racism is a part of our city, and that we have demonstrated and seen time and again racism left and right. But we have a lot of opportunity to grow here. So Maine's the whitest state in the country, and that's an opportunity for us to say, okay, we have work to do. I think once I become a city councilor, one of the first things I'll push for is a mandatory annual anti-discrimination and anti-racism training for every city elected official, staff member, teacher, admin. It doesn't matter. If you are remotely affiliated with the city of Portland and the municipality of Portland, you have work to do. And it's our job. I mean, on this call is predominantly white people. And I think that's, that's on us. We need to create access for people of color, for queer people,
10
for
seconds.
any minority identity to show up and get engaged and feel like they do matter, their voice
5.
matters. And we do that at the ballot in November.
Thank you. Rose, your turn.
Thank you. I do think that in fact, I know the solution to this problem does begin in our schools. And while schools are overburdened with dealing with all of the problems, this is one that really has to be addressed there, and it has to be addressed early on in life and throughout the educational career of our kids. My children went through Portland schools, and actually I was thinking about this after a forum the other night. In middle school, it was all good. Everybody loved each other. It was, there didn't seem to be any sort of racial divide. And then there was something, whether it's a developmental change, I don't think it's a pedagogical change. I think it is, there's a developmental change that
10
happens
seconds.
in kids, and we need to sort of recognize where that change in thinking comes for kids, and help them realize, teach them in social justice and fairness.
Great, thank you. We're going to go to one more question from the audience. Liz, what do you have?
So I have 3 of them, Nancy. It's hard to choose, but I will do it. So Robert is asking, what do you see as the city's role in providing social services for those experiencing homelessness? And how does District 4 fit in with this? With these
Rose,
social services?
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Rose, you're on.
So we all know, the problem with homelessness or the unhoused in Portland is not, a Portland-specific problem. I mean, it's a problem that exists statewide, occurs statewide, and sort of the unfortunate outcome is that there are many communities in Maine and also in the Northeast region who send their homeless to Portland for services. So the statistic is that 30% of the people who are homeless in Portland right now actually became homeless here, and 70% have come here from somewhere else seeking services and to fulfill their needs. And while I do not deny anybody their basic rights and basic needs, we either have to turn this, the operation of accommodating the
10
homeless
seconds.
over to the state, or we've got to figure out a way for the general fund and the funding that those communities receive who send us their folks that they send us their money to.
Thank you. Andrew, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, this is a conversation that's coming up a lot, and it's coming up a lot with housed people talking about the issues of homelessness in the unhoused community. Fact of the matter is, Portland's the biggest city in the state of Maine, and it needs to accept that, and it needs to understand that comes with some responsibility. So we get the most amount of GA funding from Augusta, and yeah, we're not doing a very good job of taking care of the most vulnerable people. And that's a problem. We need to do better. But that involves our state representatives. Portland has, I believe, 8, 10 representatives in the state house, and the rest of Maine is going to have a hard time thinking of, poor Portland, the big city, needing more money to take care of people. Fact of the matter is, people are here. I hear every day, like, let's put them on a bus and send them back to where we came from.
15.
I don't even understand how to respond to that, to be completely honest. We have to take care of people who are in need. We have, we're working every day with nonprofits and businesses and local government to make this happen, but we need our governor and Augusta to show up and help us deal with this on a daily basis.
Thank you. Well, we have really asked you guys lots of questions, sort of covering the full spectrum. You did a beautiful job answering them. We have now come to the conclusion of our forum. Thank you so much to our 2 candidates, Rose Mahoney and Andrew Zarrow, and to our audience for your participation. We're going to email you shortly with a link with the recording. Please share it widely with your neighbors, friends, family, etc. We are actually holding a second forum for the 4 at-large candidates next Tuesday, October 13th at 7 o'clock. We'd love to see you there. We would also really appreciate any feedback that you have about our questions or our format, because we want this to be the best possible. And tonight was very much an experiment. A reminder that Friends of Woodfords Corner and Back Cove Neighborhood Association are both nonprofit organizations trying to make our community better. Please consider getting involved with and helping us via time or even money. Finally, I'm sure you don't need a big reminder, but please vote. Thank you and good night.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it. Nice to see your faces.
Thank you for having us. I really appreciate being here.